The winner goes to the championship. Will it be St. John Paul II or Flower Bluff? Find out next on Challenge.
Challenge Team bracket sponsors are Navy Army Community Credit Union,
HEB, Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi,
Citgo,
the John G. and Marie Stella Kennedy Memorial Foundation,
King Ranch Family Trust.
Additional funding is provided by Texas A&M University, Kingsville,
Del Mar College,
Corpus Christi Caller.Times,
Valero.
and the Coastal Bend Community Foundation.
Support is also provided by these community-minded organizations.
Hello and welcome to Challenge. I'm Eric Boyd. Tonight we begin the semifinals in the 2017 academic tournament. The winners of this game between the St. John Paul II Centurions and the Flower Bluff Hornets will qualify for our special one-hour challenge championship in 2 weeks. Reviewing how they got here, the St. John Paul II Centurions won the Kennedy Memorial Foundation bracket with wins over Academy and CCISD Collegiate, and they earned a high score bye to advance to this round. The Flower Bluff Hornets won the Texas A&M University Corpus Christi bracket with wins over Rockport Fulton, Carroll, and Port Aransas high schools. This promises to be a great game. First, let's meet the players for the St. John Paul II Centurions.
Alexander Kimmel, senior.
Amy Ayala, sophomore.
Shelby Zapata, senior.
Maya Zamaron, sophomore.
Coach for St. John Paul II is Kyle Gibson. Their alternates are Ryan Lopez and Maximilian Kimmel. The team manager is Bridget Lee Sang. Please give it up for the Centurions. Now meet the players for the Flower Bluff Hornets.
Maggie Libby, senior.
Jack Hodges, senior.
Hallie Trial, junior.
Victoria Epstein, senior.
Coach for Flower Bluff is Beth Huckabee. Their alternates are Jacob Lerma and Zane Ortega. Team manager is Sarah Muir. Please welcome the Hornets. We begin with toss-up questions worth 10 points each, and remember, no conferring between players. Good luck, and here we go. Highland dress is the traditional costume. Flower Bluff, Maggie?
Scotland.
Is correct. What term for a list of candidates is in an election also indicates Flower Bluff, Maggie?
Ballot.
St. John Paul II, I can finish, also indicates a fine-grained metamorphic rock that readily splits into smooth, flat pieces. Alexander?
Slate.
Is correct. What is the term for these kinds of collections? The Illustrated Man, American Gothic Tales, Oxford, Flower Bluff, Maggie?
Anthologies.
Yes, ma'am. Dean Rusk, Stuart Udall, and Robert McNamara all served in the cabinets. Flower Bluff, Jack?
Kennedy and Johnson.
Is correct. Name any two of the three families of subatomic particles. Flower Bluff, Maggie?
Proton, neutron.
St. John Paul II. Alexander?
Boson, lepton.
Baryon, lepton, meson. Up next, a video question from geography instructor at Del Mar College, Frank N. McMillan.
What is the longest river in Europe west of the Ural Mountains? The Rhine, the Seine, the Volga, or the Danube?
St. John Paul II. Alexander?
Volga.
You got it. What strait forms the boundary between Europe and Asia? Flower Bluff, Maggie?
The Strait of Gibraltar.
St. John Paul II. Alexander?
The Bosporus.
That is correct. What Canadian province borders the state of Maine to its north and St. John Paul II? Alexander?
Quebec.
Flower Bluff. Jack?
Newfoundland.
Neither one. To its north and northeast, it is bordered by New Brunswick. In 1990, what dictator annexed Kuwait as a province? St. John Paul II. Alexander?
Saddam Hussein.
Is correct. Walrus tusks are covered at their tips with what especially hard substance? Flower Bluff. Maggie?
Enamel.
Yes. You'll need your paper and pencils for this next question. Compute the most probable oxidation number of an element which possesses 7 electrons in the outermost. Flower Bluff. Maggie?
1. -1.
There you go. Now the Valero STEM video question of the week with Public Affairs Manager at Valero, Darcy Schrader.
What is the opposite of plano concave?
Flower Bluff. Maggie?
Planar convex.
You got it. What is the term for the place where seabirds gather to breed? St. John Paul II. Alexander?
Rookery.
Yes. What lofty monolithic igneous intrusion or volcanic neck in Wyoming was proclaimed as a national? Flower Bluff. Maggie?
Mount St. Helens.
St. John Paul II, I can finish, proclaimed as a national, not. Alexander?
The Devil's Tower.
Is correct. Name the 2 types of spin in tennis. Flower Bluff. Maggie?
Forward, backward.
St. John Paul II. Amy?
Top spin and slice.
That's correct. What adjective applies to animals such as horses, bison, geese, zebras, and penguins that means they are sociable and tend to gather and move? Flower Bluff. Hallie?
Gregarious.
Is correct. What story by Richard Adams has been called the Aeneid? Flower Bluff. Maggie?
Watership down.
Is correct. The prepositional phrase should have been placed after what word in this sentence? The patient was referred to a psychiatrist with severe emotional problem. Flower Bluff. Maggie?
The prepositional phrase should have been placed after the word patient.
You got it. Next, a video question from Professor of Psychology and Chair of the Department of Psychology and Sociology at Texas A&M University Corpus Christi, Dr. Pamela Brouillard.
Intrusive thoughts and ritualistic behaviors characterize which of the following disorders? Phobias, PTSD, panic disorder, obsessive-compulsive disorder.
Flower Bluff. Maggie?
Obsessive-compulsive disorder.
Yes. Britain's monetary unit, the pound, is abbreviated LB. What Latin word? St. John Paul II. Alexander?
Libra.
Is correct. In 1867, the dual monarchy was established in Central Europe. What 2 countries? St. John Paul II. Alexander?
Austria and Hungary.
Is correct. I will give you the author and the first part of a fictional work's title. You complete it. William Styron, The Confessions of. Flower Bluff. Maggie?
Nat Turner.
Yes. Reminiscent of physical or mental weariness resulting from prolonged exertion, what is the term for the weakening? Flower Bluff. Maggie?
Fatigue.
Yes. Constitutionally speaking, what is the collective term for those powers retained by the states? Flower Bluff. Maggie?
Enumerated.
St. John Paul II. Alexander?
Non-enumerated.
They are the reserved powers. Next, a video question from Assistant Professor of Agricultural Science at Texas A&M University Kingsville, Stephen Chumley.
What is the formula for determining volume of a cylinder? Like how many cubic inches of soil can be found in this bucket? Length times width, pi times radius squared, length times width times height, or pi times radius squared times height.
Flower Bluff. Maggie?
Pi times radius squared times height.
Is correct. What city's 2.5-year siege was lifted on January 19, 1944? St. John Paul II. Alexander.
Leningrad.
Yes. Name the 1991 novel whose first line is, "This will be over soon, and then I can go home to Tara." Flower Bluff. Victoria.
Gone with the Wind.
St. John Paul II. Alexander.
The Poisonwood Bible.
It is Scarlet, the sequel to Margaret Mitchell's Gone with the Wind. That buzzer means we've reached the end of round 1 of our game. The current score is St. John Paul II 100, Flower Bluff 130. Now the bonus round. When a team correctly answers a toss-up question, that team will gain control and have an opportunity to answer 3 additional bonus questions worth 5 points each. You may confer on the bonus, but all answers must come from the team captain. So here we go with toss-up first. Write these down. Precambrian, Paleozoic, Mesozoic, Cenozoic. I'll name the event and you name the era. The Alps, Himalayas, and Cascades were formed. Flower Bluff. Maggie.
Paleozoic.
St. John Paul II. Alexander.
Cenozoic.
Is correct. Okay, St. John Paul II, your first category is fill in the blank. Thomas Malthus's most famous work is entitled An Essay on the Principles of Blank.
Population.
Is correct. You'll often find a piece of furniture called an end blank next to a sofa.
Table.
Yes. Complete the following description of log rolling offered by Simon Cameron, Abe Lincoln's first Secretary of State. You blank my back and I'll blank yours.
Scratch.
That's correct. 3 for 3. Here we go. Back to toss-up. What figure of speech is used repeatedly in this verse? A tap at the pane, the quick, sharp scratch and blue spurt of a lighted match. Flower Bluff. Maggie.
Metaphor.
St. John Paul II. Alexander.
Rhyme.
It is onomatopoeia. While the names for American naval ships are usually preceded with USS, British naval ships are usually Flower Bluff. Maggie.
HMS.
Is correct. Flower Bluff, I'll name an African nation, and you tell me whether it's located primarily in the north, south, east, west, or central part of the continent. Lesotho.
South. South.
Yes. Mali.
West.
And north. North.
West. Tanzania.
East.
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 Is correct. 2 for 3. Here we go. Back to toss-up. Paper and pencils for this. Which number comes next in this series? 2, 4, 12, 48, 240. Flower Bluff. Jack.
1200.
St. John Paul II. Alexander.
480.
1,440. Now a video question from 2016 Scripps South Texas Regional Spelling Champion, Claire Thomas.
This word is a noun. It means a renal calculus, kidney stone. Spell nephrolith.
St. John Paul II. Alexander.
Nephrolith.
That is right. St. John Paul II. Identify the work of fiction in which you'd meet Becky Sharp.
Gone with the Wind.
Vanity Fair. Phileas Fogg.
Around the World in 80 Days.
Yes. Paul Morrell.
Bob's Burgers.
Sons and Lovers. 1 out of 3. Okay, we're back to toss-up. The 17-year-old Jack London dropped out of college to join the 1897 gold rush in what region of the Yukon? Flower Bluff. Maggie?
The gold region.
St. John Paul II, I can finish. The 1897 gold rush in what region of the Yukon Territory? Alexander.
The Klondike.
Is correct. Okay, St. John Paul II. Plankton, necton, or benthos. In order, these are floating, swimming, and bottom-dwelling organisms. I'll name it, and you classify it according to biome. Crabs.
Benthos.
Stingray.
Necton?
Yeah.
Necton.
Protozoans.
Those are plankton. Plankton.
3 for 3. Back to toss-up. What was the medieval name for China that was popularized Flower Bluff? Maggie.
Sign.
St. John Paul II, I can finish. That was popularized by Marco Polo. Alexander.
The Orient.
It was Cathay. What does the root mean in these words? Carnival. Flower Bluff. Maggie.
Meat.
St. John Paul II, I can finish. Reincarnate. Carnivorous. Alexander.
Flesh.
Is correct. Okay, St. John Paul II, human body is your category. What kind of acid gives you acid indigestion?
Hydrochloric? Hydrochloric?
Is correct. What is the term for any displacement of bone from its normal position?
Dislocation.
Dislocation.
Yes. Which organ rids the body of ammonia?
Kidneys.
Liver. 2 out of 3. The title of M. Scott Peck's bestseller, The Road Less Traveled, was inspired by a line, Flower Bluff. Maggie.
The Yellow Wood.
St. John Paul II, I can finish, was inspired by a line from what poem by Robert Frost? Amy.
The Road Not Taken.
Is correct. St. John Paul II, War and Peace and Crime and Punishment first spring to mind when you think of novels with paired titles. Finish these other such titles. Sons and
Daughters.
Lovers. The Moon and
Stars, I don't know.
Maria Whitney.
Sixpence. The Naked and
Afraid.
The Naked and the Afraid. No, it's The Naked and the Dead. That was 0 for 3. That sound means we're at the end of round 2. The current score is St. John Paul II, 195, Flower Bluff, 150. In recognition of making it to the Challenge semifinals, schools in tonight's game are each being presented with 2 scholarships from Del Mar College. Let's learn more about the scholarships from Del Mar College President, Dr. Mark Escamilla.
Good evening. On behalf of Del Mar College, it's my pleasure to congratulate St. John Paul II, Flower Bluff, Gregory Portland, and Tolosa Midway High Schools as the top 4 KEDT Challenge teams for 2017. In recognition of your team's outstanding academic achievement on Challenge, each school in the semifinals will receive 2 $500 scholarships to be awarded to students from your campus who plan to attend Del Mar College. Whether you choose to study on the East Campus, the West Campus, or enroll in our dual credit classes or online degree programs, Del Mar College can help you reach the degree and the career of your dreams. Last year, Del Mar College delivered educational opportunities to more than 25,000 South Texas credit and workforce certification students. Check out your opportunities at your community college. Once again, congratulations and best wishes to all the KEDT Challenge semifinal schools.
Thank you, Dr. Escamilla and Del Mar College, for your support of Challenge. Back to the game. Round 3 is the 60-second lightning round. Each team selects a category and may confer for the answers. Teams may pass on any question. Captains, you must answer for your teams. Currently, Flower Bluff, you are behind, so you may choose one of the 3 topics to answer yourselves, or you may choose a topic that St. John Paul II must answer. Here are your options: signers, murder, math.
Math. And that seems risky.
Murder.
Also,
I'm going to say math. Is that okay?
Go with it.
Math.
Math it is. Okay, we'll start the timer now. Of odd, even, or neither, which word describes the cosine function?
Odd.
Even. What's the least common multiple of 2, 3, and 4?
12. 12.
Is correct. Find the prime factors of 91.
13 and 7.
13 and 7.
Yes. 400% of 400 equals what?
1600.
1600.
Yes. In degrees, what is the period of the cosecant function?
2 pi? 2 pi.
360.
360.
I have to go with your first answer. It is 360. 0 factorial equals what integer?
1.
1.
Yes. What Greek letter stands for summation in math?
Sigma.
Sigma.
Yes. What is the slope of the line 2x plus 7y equals 28?
Negative 2 sevenths.
Yes. What does 15 squared equal?
225.
Yes. Name 2 consecutive prime numbers.
5 and 7.
2 and 3. Judge says 7 out of 10. Okay, St. John Paul II, it is your turn. Here are your options: signers, murder, classics.
Want to do murder?
Let's go
Murder.
St. John Paul II has chosen murder. In what city was each person slain? We'll start the timer now. John F. Kennedy.
Dallas.
Yes. Abraham Lincoln.
Washington.
DC.
DC.
Yes. Julius Caesar.
Rome.
Yes. Robert Kennedy.
Chicago.
Los Angeles. John Lennon.
Los Angeles.
New York City. Indira Gandhi.
New Delhi.
Yes. Anwar Sadat.
Jerusalem.
Cairo. Johnny Versace.
Milan.
Miami. Wild Bill Hickok
Deadwood.
is correct. Jesse James.
Dodge City.
That would be St. Joseph, Missouri. Judge says 5 out of 10. And at the end of the 60-second lightning round, our score is St. John Paul II, 245, Flower Bluff, 220. Now, we continue the game with toss-up questions. Remember, teams, individual answers only. Here we go. What literary technique is used in these lines? She didn't like to spend money, but she was no Scrooge. Flower Bluff. Maggie.
Contrast.
St. John Paul II. Amy?
Oxymoron.
Neither one. It is illusion. In Animal Farm, Squealer announces the cutting of the food supply in this way. For the time being, it has been found necessary to make a readjustment of rations. Flower Bluff. Maggie.
Food.
St. John Paul II, I can finish. What is the term for such a substitution of a mild, indirect expression to replace a harsher, more unpleasant one? Alexander.
Understatement.
It is a euphemism. Time for a video question from Coastal Bend Association of Beekeepers, Karen Lee Reistad.
When a honeybee colony reproduces, a cluster of bees forms nearby while they search for a new home. What is the cluster of bees called?
St. John Paul II, Alexander.
Bee ball.
Flower Bluff, Jack.
Swarm
is correct. That's twice, apparently. What field of science and engineering could be defined as the liquid version of pneumatics? St. John Paul II, Alexander.
Aquatics.
Flower Bluff, Jack.
hydraulics
is correct. What was Priscilla Alden's maiden name? Flower Bluff, Jack.
Presley.
St. John Paul II. That would be Mullins. Who was Prime Minister of Italy between 1922 and 1943? Flower Bluff, Maggie.
Mussolini.
Is correct. What famous abolitionist cabin can be seen in Osawatomie, Kansas? St. John Paul II, Alexander.
Harriet Beecher Stowe's.
Flower Bluff. Jack.
Harriet Tubman.
It is John Brown's. With what philosophy would you associate this phrase? It is impossible to live pleasurably without living wisely. Well, Flower Bluff, Maggie.
Stoicism.
St. John Paul II, I can finish. And justly. And impossible to live wisely, well, and justly without living pleasurably. Alexander?
Epicureanism.
Is correct. An ethnomusicologist, Bella Bartok, studied the folk songs of what countries? Flower Bluff, Maggie.
The Soviet countries.
St. John Paul II. Alexander.
The U.S. and Canada.
It is Hungary and Romania. What name is missing in this limerick based on a Greek myth? In Sophocles' powerful drama, young blank had a great trauma. He did? St. John Paul II, Alexander?
Oedipus.
Is correct. 2 answers required. In the form of which animal did Zeus father the Gemini twins Castor and Pollux, and who was their mother? Flower Bluff, Maggie.
In the form of a bull, the mother was Pasiphae.
St. John Paul II. Form of a swan, mother was Leda. In the late 18th century, the British Navy took over 9,000 men who claimed to be American citizens and forced them to become sailors through Flower Bluff. Maggie.
Impressment.
Is correct. Name the Italian who composed the William Tell Overture. St. John Paul II, Alexander.
Rossini.
Is correct. What is a term for the degree to which an optical instrument can distinguish the details? Flower Bluff, Maggie.
Grain.
St. John Paul II, I'll finish. Or not, Alexander.
Resolution.
Is correct. That buzzer means that time has expired in our game. The final score is St. John Paul II, 285. Flower Bluff, 260. Congratulations to St. John Paul II. They have won the West Bracket and advanced to the 2017 Challenge Championship. Next week, we'll determine the East Bracket winners when the Gregory Portland Wildcats face the Tolosa Midway Warriors. For Challenge, I'm Eric Boyd. Thank you for watching and good night.
This has been a production of KEDT, your community-owned station.
Challenge Team bracket sponsors are Navy Army Community Credit Union,
HEB, Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi,
Citgo,
the John G. and Marie Stella Kennedy Memorial Foundation,
King Ranch Family Trust.
Additional funding is provided by Texas A&M University, Kingsville,
Del Mar College,
Corpus Christi Caller-Times,
Valero,
and the Coastal Bend Community Foundation.
Support is also provided by these community-minded organizations.